So I've had the pleasure of knowing my friend and fellow practitioner, Doug Moody, for many years now. While Doug is our newest licensed practitioner, and he'll never get over that for a while, don't let that fool you. Every time that Doug speaks to us, I learn something amazing about the nature of God and the universe. So listen up as Doug shares his thoughts and our opening spiritual mind treatment. Doug?
Thank you, Lee. And good morning, everyone. I commend you all for being here. I know it's a little cold and a little damp outside, but we're all here and in a new environment together. And it's kind of fun and exciting. I can't help but I've had several thoughts of the flashbacks of all the stories I've heard of when this teaching started in Atlanta. It started by meeting in a local hotel. I think it was the Admiral Bimbo Inn or something when Kennedy Schultz was first starting this teaching in our community. And so we're kind of coming full circle this weekend. It's fun and it's exciting to kind of look back and reflect and just see how far we've come and how much we've grown. It's really exciting. So you may have remembered when I spoke last month, I promised you that with it being February and this week being the season of Valentine's Day, that I would share with you Love Potion number 9. Love Potion number 9. Okay, yeah. So in looking at, with Valentine's Day coming up, and, it's so funny, it was actually my grandmother's favorite holiday because my grandmother so believed in the power of love and life. And I loved having that influence. And so every Valentine's Day, I especially think of her. But I was thinking and found one of my favorite top 10 Ernest Holmes quotes, which says, "Love is the greatest power in the universe. It's the basis and the source of everything." And when you really think about that and how, much more effective your spiritual mind treatments and your treatment and your meditation work become when you put that love and that passion behind it, you really start seeing things happening in your life. And this not only applies in loving relationships, it applies in your career, in your relationships with everyone, in the work that you do, in, creating wealth and money, all of that stuff. When you put that passion and that love behind it, it really creates a significant difference. One example of that I want to share with you this morning was in attracting love into my life and how that happened. And this teaching works perfectly, and it's demonstrated beautifully. For me, it took a couple of times. The first time I used this treatment, I was much younger and just kind of a new student, and I kind of focused on a lot of the, more physical and visual qualities of what the person I wanted to attract into my life would be like. And it was amazing. That person showed up, and we were in a relationship for 7 years. But I realized I kind of left out a very important component in my visualization and my treatment work. I didn't really think so much about what that person would be like or what the feeling of love would be like that I would share with that person. And so while the person checked all the boxes for what I had specified and put out into the universe, that person wasn't as loving as what I wanted to be in a loving relationship. And that relationship did not last. So the next time, and I took a period of break from that, and when I employed this treatment work again and started deciding, I actually came up with I put stuff down in writing, and I found my old journal, and I listed qualities of what I wanted to attract in a life partner, not really focusing on the physical stuff, but naming 16 qualities and kind of taking it further and with a description of what that would be like. And some of the things I had listed were honesty, loyalty, loving, intelligence, career, being self-supported, spiritual, having a spiritual component. And I really focused on these other qualities in my treatment work. And this page is dated August 22nd, 1996. I met my partner that I've been with now for 22 and a half years, probably about 10 days later after doing this. And another lesson in this is you have to be very open when you're doing this work. I had a friend, I had just bought a house. I had given up on the whole dating scene because I was over it. You know, it's like, I've got a house. I have a deposit on a Labrador puppy coming. I'm good. I'm set. I have my nieces and nephews, my mom and dad, my family. I've got a great group of friends. I'm whole. I'm complete. And I think it took getting to that place to where you really find what you're putting out and attracting to come forth and where you actually recognize it. And so, like I said, about 10 days later, a friend of mine who was really upset with me because I had just kind of become a hermit. I bought a duplex and I was renovating the other half so that I could get my tenant in place. And this friend of mine said, "Nope, you're coming to this tennis tournament with me. It was a Labor Day tennis tournament in town." I'm like, "Oh yeah, all right, you know, for what?" And so he was like, "No, come on, it's just going to be a middle break." And so, long story short, I went, and we got there, and he just casually mentioned to me, he's like, "Now that guy down on the court looks like your type of guy." And I kind of turned and I looked at the tennis court, and this match had just finished, and you know, I saw this guy, and he looked like a real nice person, and yeah, yeah, and so you know, a little while later, this guy was kind of looking back at me, and there was a sea of people between us, and, you know, it never happened or anything. But 2 days later, my friend said, "Okay, you're coming to the awards banquet for the tennis tournament with me." I'm like, "Oh, please." You know, he's like, "No, that guy might be there." I'm like, "Oh, he's probably from out of town. He'll never be there," you know. So we walked in and to the restaurant where the awards banquet was being held, and I walked into the room, and I saw him across the room, and he was there. And I went up and I introduced myself to him and extended my hand and shook his hand. And, you know, we started talking. And I wanted to continue talking, so I moved the place card at the dinner seating. And that was really a bold move because it happened to be the team captain's place card. And he was not happy about it. But I was pretty focused. And so... like I said, you know, that led to a first date and several dates after that. And Greg, I love you more than I can even say beyond words. And it's really amazing, you know. But so the whole thing is you can use this teaching to attract the love that you want in your life. And you can use this same teaching to maintain that love in your life too. And it's all about realizing that we have that infinite supply of love that is always ready to be called forth. And all we have to do is recognize it and just let it shine, let it out. And so, you know, there is no love potion number 9 because all of that stuff comes directly from within you. It's not a song. It's not a, you know, cologne or a fragrance that has any kind of special pheromones in it that attract these things to you. It is you attracting and resonating your own being and letting that shine forth. So anyhow, I'm going to ask you now to join me in spiritual mind treatment. And we're going to do that. Let's uncross our legs and limbs and be in an open and receptive position and take a couple of deep breaths and just relax and know this together. There is one power, one infinite intelligence, one cosmic something that is operating throughout the universe and operating through me and each right here, right now, and always. I am always one with this infinite intelligence that is God, as is every beautiful soul present. I can never be separate from this divine power for light and joy and success because it is always shining forth from within me, that still voice of unlimited wisdom, unlimited love, unlimited possibility, expressing perfectly and uniquely as me and all present. I know all are one with Spirit. And today and every day forward, I know that I and each are blessed with the infinite creative power that is God. And I and each use this power to co-create a life overflowing with infinite love and joyful expression of love. I expand my heart and consciousness so that I can give all of the infinite love that I allow to flow through and as me back out into the world, blessing the lives of my partner or our spouses, parents, siblings, extended family members, colleagues at work, neighbors, fellow CSL Midtown members, and everyone I meet. I am a love machine. And I know that the law of the universe guarantees that this infinite love is returned to me multiplied abundantly. I am love, and I also am loved. I claim divine wisdom, right action, love, and courage, guiding me in each present to grow and expand in this consciousness of love. Today I claim that every day is St. Valentine's Day, and I celebrate it as so. My mind and heart are open and receptive to today's lesson, knowing there's something right here and now that is exactly what I need to know at this time to move me and each person forward into a greater, fuller expression of life. I claim this with divine wisdom for myself and all. My heart, my mind, and my spirit are overflowing with infinite gratitude and joy and love for the opportunity to think and create my life that is overflowing with love for all. I am grateful for this teaching, for this center, and for the mindful consciousness within me and within every beautiful person present. I joyfully release my word into the universal law, knowing it is done, it is complete, and it is wonderful. And together we say, and so it is.
Thank you, Doug. I first met our guest speaker, Ray McCants, several years ago at the Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta, where I was studying to become a practitioner. So many of you may already know him as a long-term member in our spiritual community, all the way back to the person that he studied under, which is Kennedy Schultz, which was long before my time. Guess I shouldn't make you feel old here, Ray. But he is a long-term spiritual speaker on the spirit science of mind, and went through ministerial training and practitioner training with Kennedy Schultz. Shortly after Bob Dean and Paul Gagne completed their training. Ray is a therapist and counselor with a practice in the Atlanta area. And with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Ray. Welcome.
Okay. I've already shared the story with Vance, speaking at the Atlanta Church of Religious Science years ago on a Wednesday night. It was 5 days after my father's funeral, and I had been in Virginia. I already had this speaking engagement for that night. And I got back, and I was in the green room, we call it, outside of the big room where there were about 150 people gathered. And I was with my friend Louise Weldon. She was one person who started the youth church at the original SLCA when it was up at the museum. And so I was just talking with her honestly and go, Louise, I'd already done the talk, I'd written it 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I've been through everything and my energy is just down. It's like, let's get it pumped up. She had studied NLP and the works of Tony Robbins. I said, let's pump our energy up. And so I said, think of your highest experience when your feelings, your emotions were the highest and you were exhilarated. It's like, see it. Now anchor it in and go, yes. Now think of it again and make it twice as big. Yes. Yes. And yes. And then I said, okay, I'm ready. Let's go out. I walked out and got a round of applause from the audience. My microphone was on. They had heard everything I just said. So when Vance wired me up and said, okay, Vance, who do you want a secret conversation from? I'm wearing the wire now. But exact words that went through my mind this morning that Doug shared. This is full circle. It was in about 1979 that Kennedy Schultz started the Atlanta Church of Religious Science that met right up the street here at the Admiral Benbow Hotel, which they rented that room on Sunday mornings, had to get there early to clear out the beer bottles, the drink cups, and all of that, with the smell of cigarettes and alcohol wafting in the room. But what's really interesting, one of my very favorite stories from my teacher and my really longest term first spiritual mentor was the way he did that church. Kennedy was just a 3.5-year or 4th-year student. He had not even completed the ministerial program at that time. And Life and Providence, his teacher was Raymond Charles Barker, one of the most well-known spiritual authors and writers on the subject. So he had the opportunity in his life to move to Atlanta. His teacher, Raymond, said, Kennedy, you've got to do the church there. And he goes, oh my God, in the middle of the Bible Belt, the heart of, traditional religion and all of that. And Barker was the type, just like today, when he was visiting the church in Atlanta once, staying at the Colony Square Hotel. He opened the windows, the curtains across from the High Museum. It was pouring down, raining, gray and windy. Barker looks at it and goes, they'll come anyway. And went right at it. The way this happened, Kennedy all of a sudden is starting a group that starts meeting. This did, by the way, grow into a group of 2,000 and one of the largest audiences in the movement. But that Sunday, the first Sunday that he was to speak and open the church, just like me talking to Louise in the green room, Kennedy told Raymond Charles Barker, it's like, Raymond, I don't know anything about operating a church. It's like, what do I do? And Raymond goes, oh, no problem. I'll tell you everything you need to know to grow and open your church in the elevator, on the ride, on the way downstairs. And what he told him is, there's only one mind, and that you are connected to it through your own subconscious mind. It's a repository of all of the information, all of the knowledge, all of the wisdom of the ages. You have a link to it. You direct your question to it and make your demand upon it. And then everything you need to know step by step will be provided to you. He said, that's all you need to know. And he ended up being the president of the international organization with the second biggest congregation. So that's how it happens. That's one of the stories. But anyway, a couple of days ago when Bob called me and told me it looked like he was going to be snowed in Oregon, where he is, he said, can you speak? And I said, sure. He says, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be on the title I've published, because he'd already published that he would be speaking on living prosperously. And so I said, that's no problem. He said, I'll use whatever comes. He said, that's no problem, Bob. So title of my talk today is Prosperous Living, since he's already published that title. And it's going to be at a little different take. This is not a step-by-step how to create abundance and cash flow in your life. This is going to be a blueprint for that you will fill in the data and the information and give you a blueprint and a roadmap for creating prosperity, for whatever that means in your life. So also, I'm in the midst of, this is halfway through the 8-week certified course that Bob is teaching on the works of Emma Curtis Hopkins, who is one of the great spiritual teachers. She was called the teacher of teachers. Among her students were Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who started Unity, the founders of Christ Scientist Church, and Ernest Holmes himself was one of her students. So from the time he said he was going to teach the class, I was interested because I'd never taken just a class on Emma Curtis Hopkins. And she was a Victorian teaching around the beginning of the last century, and was his student, and he was her student. Taking this course has been really a wow experience. We've had 4 of the 8 classes. After the first class, the first week, I called my best friend. I said, "Oh, this course is working already. It's working on me. It's working in me, and it's stirring me up." Because the first week, actually, I'm letting this course have its way with me. I've given into it. Just like when I went to Asia. It's like I let Asia have its way with me. And oh, what a difference it made. But it started coming up right off of the bat. Bob says, "Okay, why are you here?" It's like, oh. It's like, not just that go down the aisle, who are you, and, what do you do for a living and whatnot. No, why are you here? And he says, "What do you want?" And these are words from Emma. He says, "You need to put this right now into words. In fact, you need to put it into 2 words. Put me right on the spot, right off of the bat." What came to, and then he's having us journal too, so I wrote it in the journal, and then he has us report back. Well, what came to me immediately was, I'm here for revelation, and I don't mean like revelations like the last book in the Bible. I mean revealization. It's like, okay, something in me wants the next step forward revealed to me. That's in my mind. And the other is revitalization. It's like, this teaching has taken me so far. It's taken me through highs and lows in my life. I've reached such peaks. And like everything, you learn, you plateau, you learn, you plateau, you do all of that. It's like, I really want the fire of one of these great spiritual leaders revitalized in me. And then in the first reading, in the first week, I see right there in words, intention, which is what Bob was asking. What is your intention? Emma herself said, intention is one of the most powerful affirmations you can make. Setting your intention, getting clear on it, and speaking it. Emma's known for, she even taught Christian Science, the people who started Christian Science churches. She's big even in physical healing, and her whole thing is speaking the word. Getting so clear on these principles that you speak your word and it causes change in your life. So that was my intention for the class, and that is my intention for my time with you today. And that is that each one of you will have a revealization of your current and former information, the things and the questions in your life right now, that you will get new insight, new information about it, just from experiencing the energy of this person's words. And the other is revitalization. My intent is for you to feel the energy of how these things can surge through your life. And then Bob starts right in. He says, okay, anybody have a problem with the G word, meaning the God word? Well, I've been in this teaching since 1980, so 38, 39 years. I've had a lot of time to reframe the idea that God is not a person, that it is not specifically a white male, that it is not something that dwells out there in the realm of the realms and regions, which is pulling strings like the puppets we are, and that we are having to figure out how to please Him. So I've had a lot of time to untie all of those knots. But as I wrote in my journal and told Bob, oh no, I still get a charge off that, Bob. There's still a charge in there, which means that it's still in there in race consciousness. I've learned to go cancel. It's not that. It is energy. And which is why this teaching appealed to me, because of its scientific approach. So the next thing I'm reading from Emma, and I'm going, oh, is this going to be old-time religion? Because she uses a lot of the terminology from old-time religion. And even Judy, another member, says, and what about the J word, Bob? That's going to be coming up too. The Jesus word. Because she talks a lot about the work is done by Jesus Christ or through Jesus Christ. What we know from this teaching is that that principle of the Christ consciousness, which is aware of its connection to Source, is operative in us in our subconscious mind. It is where we are aware of our connection to Source. And the great teacher, Jesus, whose effect lasted for 2,000 years, who, by the way, I think has been one of the most maligned people who ever walked on the face of the earth when you consider the attributes, the words, the motives that have been attributed to him that he never said. All he ever really said was, there is a way and there is a path. Two things are involved, love and forgiveness. So, but I thought, oh, we really are going to get to deal with this. Emma herself said she had to admit that the word God was problematical. She says because of the negative and other reactions it does set up in people. And the fact that everybody has so many ideas about what it is. But she also said God may have other names. This is really funny. The first week in this class, I had that same week the occasion to perform my first marriage ceremony. I have done lots of, more than I ever asked for or expected, funeral ceremonies. But this was a marriage ceremony. And so, of two of my dearest friends. So I went to the literature looking for the writings of poets on the subject of love. And I found Khalil Gibran. And not the typical one read at weddings where it states about stand close but not too closely, keep your own guidance and all of that. It was another one on love, about when it finds you, let it have its way with you, that you do not direct the course of love, it directs you. And then right there, the next thing, it said, love is the highest name of God. That was 4 or 5 days before I started this class. As soon as I picked it up and started reading, in the first or second chapter, there Emma Curtis Hopkins is saying, love is the highest name of God. And I'm going, something about this message is certainly around, but it has many other names too. Love, free health, support, unlimited supply, unbounded expression, substance, divine mind, divine intelligence, peace, harmony, balance. But Emma says the better word that she likes for it is good. Our good. I'm going, wait a minute, this takes me back to freshman English in college when the English teacher's writing Plato on the blackboard and putting, there is the good, and then there's this other. But the good is the circle and all of it. She says that actually our good, your good, is the highest God. That that it is what you claim. The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes' definition of God uses first cause, absolute spirit, the great I am, creator of all good, energy, or my favorite saying, which came from Kennedy, my teacher, energy, not entity. I've spoken on the subject. Energy, not entity. You know what Raymond Charles Barker said about that? God created man in its image, i.e., meaning the ability to think and create. And man, not to be outdone, went forth and did likewise, and made God a man and a human, encapsulated it. But Emma says, you have to define what your good is. What is your good? Because she says, because your good is God. That God is the first name of good, and good is the first name of God. So what is your good? Is it perfect health? Is it freedom in health? Is it freedom of expression? Is it intimate relationship, loving relationships? Is it unlimited abundance? Is it, because it really does fall pretty much in all areas. It's health, wealth, creative self-expression, financial abundance. She says you have to define that, and that the word that she wants you to speak is that. And our assignment for that week was, okay, put all of it in 2 words. What are the 2 words you would choose? That would be a prosperous connection to unlimited source. And what came to me at that moment in time I was working on, it's like, okay, abundant supply. Not saying that money in a specific form has to come through a specific area, through a specific activity or whatever, but abundant supply. And then she says, and the assignment was, and then speak this out loud, and then think of it as a mantra. It's like all the time, every moment, you like repeat it to yourself. And any time there's any wavering or anything on the subject, just say, I am connected to a source of abundant supply. The next thing she started in that next same chapter is the source of good is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. Where have we heard this? The first chapter of the Science of Mind textbook on the thing itself and what it is. She breaks it down, though. I love looking at the derivation of words. It's like, well, let's look at that word. Omnipresent. Omnipotent. O-M, Om, is the Brahmin word and has been throughout time for God. Ni N-I, from Latin, shortened for nihil, or N-I-H-I-L, means nothing, nothingness. And then potent is all power. So the literal interpretation of the word is, and because of Latin and the nature of the language, you do it backwards, all power, nothing between it and God. Omnipotent means omnipotence. Same thing for omnipresent, meaning God, nothing in between, presence. That means everywhere present at all times, every moment. There's no place that it cannot be. And then omniscience, with niscience coming really from the Latin root cognito, to know. Omniscience is knowledge. So, all knowledge. Nothing in between it and God. It is the source of creation. It knows the content of your heart. It knows the content of your mind. It is omniscient. And she says, this is the first cause. This is the root. This is where you start. Since this is the source of all creation, you know, the Bible itself states in the beginning there was what? Just the Word, Logos. And the Word was God, and the Word was with God. I like the word good. Think of it as your good. I like this teaching because you can be a member of any church, any religion, any faith, any organization. You can be an agnostic. You can be an atheist. Some of the best people I know are atheists. That's a quote from Pope Francis. But the people, all you really have to accept that is the theory of energy, and that there is a source of energy and the source of creation, and that everything that's created is created out of it and came from it. Our individual spirit, the metaphysical term for God, spirit. That spirit, that energy, which is pure energy, is what our indwelling conscious mind spirit came from. It dwells in us as the conscious mind, that which is aware of itself, the I am consciousness. And that relates to our conscious mind, our spirit. And I'm not saying, this is where words get all turned out, that we are all God. But you are. You have it in you. It's everything that we are is God and from God. But we are not everything that God is. We have a spark of it in us. It was indwelling in us when we took in the first breath. She calls it the inspiration of God, and it is connected to us by our breath. That's why deep meditation, going very deep, getting to that place of balance, peace, you dwell on and you focus on the breath. It's like go back to just being aware of the inhalation and the exhalation until you get back to that peace and that balance. And as Deepak Chopra says, there in between the breaths there is God. You want to get back to that state of stillness and connection that's right in between the breath. Because at that moment, there's not anything else you need. There's nothing outside of yourself that you need. Everything that you need right then is given. And we are in touch with our connection at that time. And we're in touch with the other part of our mind, that great subconscious. The conscious mind relates to the objective mind. That's what Thomas Troward calls it, objective and subjective mind. The objective mind, the conscious mind, the I am spirit, there are as many of them as there are individual bodies for it to inhabit. The subconscious mind, or the subjective mind, is only one, and that we dwell in it, and that it is our individual portion and use of it, the subconscious mind. Well, the way they operate is different. Conscious mind, the conscious mind, or the gifts of the Spirit and the attributes of the Spirit, ought to have self-awareness of I am. It also has choice. We have freedom of choice to choose. It has volition. It is creative. It goes forth. It's where we choose and pick, what is my good? What do I want? Then the subjective or the subconscious mind is the part that we join in. Its operation is simply receptive. It receives the input and the imprint of our thoughts, our feelings, our words, our wishes, our desires, and it produces the result. It draws to itself the circumstances, conditions, and the events that match that, and it outpitches it. It is also that part of our mind which operates our body's automatic systems, the autonomic nervous system, the things we don't even have to think about, like inhalation, exhalation, the subdivision of the cells, the replication of the cells, the rebuilding of the body. We don't even have to think about that. Do we even think about that, Ned? We have to consciously think about that when we lay down and go to sleep. Oh God, I got to remember now to make my body remember to breathe, remember to do this. We turn it over to that part that operates automatically and that we can trust it to do so. So, really, there's an unlimited source. It's all around us. But here's the deal. It's not just around us. It's in us. Because our spirit that it came from, which is pure energy, beyond identity, beyond recognition. The Jewish faith doesn't even really have a word for God because they say that it cannot be contained in a word. The Eastern faith, the Taoists, say that the Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao. We can't even conceive it to put into words because it limits it. But you can trust that everything that's ever been created has been created out of it and fashioned out of it, so that we have a direct link, not just a mental awareness, but we have a direct link to that energy, and it's in us, to all of the abundance, all of the health, all of the supply, all of the substance, all of the love that exists. And the amount of it we can have is the amount of it that we can conceive of and that we can accept. And that our only separation from it is in our lack of awareness or our mental block to it. It's that what St. Paul called the wall of separation. Now the reason that we even can do that is that we have conscious awareness through the Spirit. We are living in a subjective field which is receptive and reproduces the thought for us. Do you believe that? Can you accept it? I can scientifically back my way into the theory. It's like, well, something is causing my body to separate its cells, to regrow, to regenerate. You know, we do regenerate all the cells in our body in a 7-year period. It's like, then why do we grow old? Well, it has to do with mental interaction and what we're sending to it. Are we sending it thoughts that, oh, you get old and you start doing this and I do that and whatever? Remember, here's something else about how subjective mind works too, the subconscious mind. It does not judge. It does not evaluate. It does not say right or wrong, good or bad, that you're a bad person saying this. It doesn't say that you're an old or a young person doing this. It simply receives. And it responds to us by co-responding to us, and it creates circumstances and conditions which match that. It's just like, I love the example, it's just like the electricity running in that wall through the wires in this room. Now, for lights to come on, we have to go over and flip the switch. We have to complete the circuit. And it doesn't evaluate and say, you're worthy, you're a good person, the lights will come on for you. No, it responds to anybody who cooperates with it. So, well then you say, why doesn't everybody already have everything then? Sure, I want everything that's good. There's about two major factors that are influencing what gets demonstrated in our life. And one is, I just said it, our faith or belief or acceptance of it. Faith has been called the substance of things hoped for, yet unseen. A mental attitude so inwardly embodied that the mind can no longer deny it. A spiritual terminology, they call it belief in the presence of an invisible principle and law, which specifically and directly responds to us. And then, the other thing, and you know how faith works? How many of you drove here today? Where's your car? Out there on the street? And you didn't even question that or doubt it, did you? Until I even mentioned it. You know, it's like, my car's right there. Well, I'd still think that until maybe I start hearing 15 or 20 sirens going down the street, and they're getting closer and closer. And it's like, oh my God, they're right outside the door. They're right behind the Academy of Medicine. And you get up and run and look. You doubt it. That's the time to renew your faith. It's like, so you go and you look and you say, oh, okay, it's there. The same is true with our belief in these principles. It's just like speaking our word or spiritual mind treatment. We turn it over to faith. We believe that this is happening. But it's the degree to which we accept that will be the degree to which it works in our life. Besides faith, it's knowing and understanding how this interacting with creative spirit works. And it's done by consciously selecting and choosing that good that we want demonstrated in our life. And then we turn that over. We speak it. We put it into words. Even the more feeling that you put with it fleshes it out and makes it three-dimensional. In fact, Emma says that same feeling that you have about the problem or the lack of it, you need to attach to the solution of it. And thought plus feeling equals consciousness, which ends up in is to what gets gets demonstrated. So we have a method and a way to do it. Here's the thing to remember about this. The subjective mind or the subconscious mind is the servant of the conscious mind, which means it just takes our orders and it receives it. And it brings back to us the result. So then we turn it over. So why don't I have everything already that I want? I see all this good. It's like, as David Barrett said on stage right across the street, well, you can go to this well with a thimble, or you can go to this well with a bucket, or you can go to this well with a huge vat. That amount that you can conceive of and accept is what you'll get, because it's objective. Spirit does not know the difference in big or small. Little doesn't know the difference in young or old. Since it's everywhere present at all time, doesn't know the difference in past, back years ago, or this happening way in the future, or happening closer. It knows it as now. So how do you get out of that? What happens then? It's like, well, I'm not getting demonstrated what I wanted. I'm getting less than that. It's like you've confused the principle. You have actually at some level accepted the reality of an opposing force or something denying it to you. So how do you get out of that? When you go into that low place, you go higher. You get right out of it. You go back to, Emma says, just go right back to omnipresent, omniactive, omnipotent, and connect with it. There's another physical reason for this. Spirit is whole and it's never divided. But in our in our subjective mind, there is positive and negative force, positive and negative influence. Just like in electricity, there's a positive and negative force. We have to learn how to bat it down, the negative. The negative idea that comes on the heels of every good idea is, oh, that hadn't been done before. Oh, that's too big to ask. I'm too old to start that. I'm too whatever. You got to nail down the negative force and go back to the central force, which is omniactive, omnipresent, omnipotent, and speak your good. What is your good? Speak it, identify it, and claim it, because you're connected to an unlimited, boundless source. And you can have what you want and what you desire. You just have to connect and do it. Are you ready? Yes. All right. Thank you for your attention. And thank you for listening to the words of Emma and Ernest. Thank you. Thank you.